The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Makena Kelly, senior writer at Wired, on the non-demise of Doge and Palantir's database. Then Roberto Camacho, journalist from San Diego, writing in bolts about folks organizing to defend people from ICE. Also on the program today, tariffs on steel and aluminum entering the country double today. Good luck if you're at a factory manufacturing anything that requires steel or aluminum. Senate Republicans race to get language done on the reconciliation bill as House Republicans now cry they didn't know what was in the bill. A shutout of goodies. Elon Musk tasked the big beautiful bill as an abomination. Trump formally asked Congress to pull back funding for public broadcasting. Pete Hegseth skips the Ukraine meeting at NATO HQ.
Is that an important one?
I mean, however, good news is he's on it. Orders the Navy to strip the name of Harvey Milk from a ship and planning to do so with any other civil rights icons. Milk was in the Navy, incidentally. The Trump regime revokes guidance to hospitals to provide emergency abortions when necessary to stabilize medical conditions of pregnant people. In the wake of a Yale report that the big beautiful bill will cost 51,000 people their lives annually, Joni Hurst's quip may turn out to haunt her.
Say Joni Hurst on purpose?
Hurst's? Oh, did I? Fetterman loses another chief of staff. The ADP report shows the weakest private sector jobs gain in over 2 years. The BLS report comes out on Friday. Trump regime looking to cut tribal college funding by 90%. And the administration delays a farm trade report because it forecasts an increase in an agricultural trade deficit. Whoopsie. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is hump day. Emma Vigeland out today. She's upset about the firing of the Knicks coach. Is she upset about it? What did she say yesterday? Was she heard about it at the end of the show?
A little bit ambivalent, maybe. You know, he got to the West Conference Finals, but also they probably reached their peak with him, so.
There you go. She'll be back in tomorrow. Obviously, right now, the big story out there is what's going on in the Senate regarding the reconciliation bill. There's a story out today, in addition to Elon Musk, and we'll talk about this, panning the bill. And there's also a story in the Times about some Republicans who are complaining that they hadn't read the bill. Now,
I thought that was satire.
well, the reality is that there have been times in the past, we'll talk about this later in the show, but there's been times in the past where you get a really big bill and it's brought to the floor very quickly and people don't have a chance to read it all and things get shoved in there. But I cannot tell you, after doing this for 20 years, how much of an issue this was for Republicans for over a decade. Like the primary complaint about the Affordable Care Act, I was on the mall interviewing people at a Glenn Beck rally. The biggest complaint about the bill was that Nancy Pelosi had said, we'll see what's in the bill when we pass it, although she was talking about it well in advance of actually hitting the floor. And B, it should be illegal to have a bill that's over, 100 pages or 10 pages or something.
Too much homework.
And to hear these stalwart Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and whatnot complain that they didn't know that certain provisions were in the bill. Incidentally, the provisions they're complaining about were literally debated on the floor. Like, we've watched some of the video. So it wasn't just a question of not reading. It was also a question of completely burying your head in the sand or sort of retconning this thing. But we'll talk more about that later. But the biggest story, of course, that has been ongoing has been the cuts to the various branches of our government, in many instances unauthorized by the Doge people. And now in a second wave, cuts that are still impacting these organizations. And because now you have Russell Vogt coming in and doing it in the sort of old-fashioned Heritage Foundation Project 2025 way, which is to come in and claim that the agency can do its mission with a lot less people. Doge just went in there and just cut willy-nilly. Project 2025, Russell Vogt from the Office of Management and Budget is coming in with what is known as RIFs, reduction in force, claiming that they can still achieve the mission of these agencies with a diminished workforce. And the fact of the matter is the amount of savings in this is, we know now, minimal. And in many instances, actually inverse. When you cut people from the IRS, you literally lose $6 or $7 or $12 per dollar you save on their salaries, because that's how much revenue they brought in. And one could probably make the argument, even with NOAA, the National Oceanic and what does it stand for?
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Yeah, nobody can remember that. Because it provides warnings about major...
like trigger warnings?
Well, no, not so much trigger warnings. But warnings about major weather events. And having that advance notice probably saves a ton of money, both in terms of being able to mobilize things like FEMA, although the FEMA head now doesn't realize that there's a hurricane season, but just, hey, maybe we should evacuate. Maybe we should board up. Maybe I shouldn't leave my boat in the water. Maybe I shouldn't have my car parked by the ocean. Whatever it is. This is a clip of a South Florida weatherman. Talking about the paths of hurricanes going forward and being able to predict where hurricanes are going to go and why he may not be able to do that anymore versus what he was able to do half a dozen years ago.
right? When is it going to turn? John, it's not turning. It's coming straight to us. It's going to turn, all right? The turn was never forecast to be on Sunday. The turn isn't even on Monday morning. The turn will come Monday afternoon, Monday evening, into Tuesday. Remember that? That was about 6 years ago. That was Hurricane Dorian, as it was absolutely devastating the Northwest Bahamas as a Category 5, sat over that region for 2 days. It was headed straight west. Lots of people in Florida were concerned the hurricane was heading here. And as you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you, it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I'm not sure I can do that this year, because of the cuts, the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind. And we may not exactly know how strong a hurricane is before it reaches the coastline, like happened a couple of years ago in Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. So I was asked to talk about this today. I'm glad I was. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped. Back to you.
That was Florida weatherman John Morales. Spoiler alert, they're going to keep those cuts. And it's possible, maybe, because there'll be a Republican senator from Florida, maybe Rick Scott, maybe will be able to get that reinstalled. But I mean, if you don't think that a 20 to 40% understaffed office or a 20% reduction in weather balloons is going to impact, it's impossible to know. 1 year, it could be, doesn't make a difference in terms of any lives. Another year, maybe it's 50 lives, maybe it's 100 lives. But at the very least, the good news is we have more money to spend on defense and to provide tax cuts to wealthy people who maybe they can have their own weather service.
They can reinforce their shelters.
I mean, we are on the cusp of feeling the real implications to all of this. We're talking about it. There's a lot of stories about it, but we are on the cusp of feeling the implications of this. And for the vast, overwhelming number of Americans, they will never be aware, understand, or have a sense of, hey, this is a function of that. No, I mean, it's just people don't have the capacity to do that. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that's just the reality.
We have a worse media environment than we did 6 years ago, as evidenced by, that clip. We have, I mean, just the idea that has to be like presented by the weatherman himself. But, and good for him, he deserves a medal, frankly. And whoever allowed him to do that on the air. Apparently South Florida's longest tenured meteorologist, been there for decades.
I was sort of shocked by, I mean, he looks older than he did 6 years ago. It happens fast, particularly when you get up around our age. But there's going to be, we're just not going to know. I mean, we're going to see this in like food safety. We're going to see this in drug safety. We're going to see this. We're going to see this across the board. It's just, there's no way to know for your average person that you can draw a line between these cuts and a diminishment of safety, quality, I don't know, convenience. They're going to get rid of the IRS direct file. I mean, we're going to see all sorts of different things like this, and people are just going to be like, oh, this sucks. And they're not going to realize what it's from. That's the challenge. But the good news is we have all these Democratic lawmakers out there really pounding the pavement about it. Chuck Schumer recording videos about the danger of a potential deal with Iran.
What kind of bull is this?
Couple words from our sponsors, and then we'll be talking to Makena Kelly, senior writer at Wired, on how Doge has sort of like dug itself into the body, the administrative body, like a tick almost. And also how Palantir is going to have all of your data. Speaking of which, Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data from online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. You'll notice, I just saw this the other day. There was a notice about like one of the phishing scams they're doing now is sending packages to you with like or a letter to you specifically with a QR code that tells you like when, like, you know, a $10 discount. Scan this QR code, and you scan it, and it just literally like dumps some type of like malware on your device. And the way they get this information, scammers, is they just can buy it from data brokers. They will combine the information they can find from data brokers with stuff maybe that they buy off the dark web, and you're screwed. And what Delete Me does is it's constantly pulling down this information from all these different data broker sites. I've been using Delete Me, I mean, partly for that reason, but also more a function of trying to, like, you know, not have a lot of my personal information out there for obvious reasons doing this job. But I want to thank Delete Me for sponsoring today's episode. You can protect both your personal privacy and the privacy of your business. Obviously, this is very important to me. Delete Me is great. They'll send you a digest or a report every month on what they found and what they've deleted. I've got much of my family under my account, and so, and you can too. You can take control of your data, keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting the word majority to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text majority to 64,000. That's majority to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. Also sponsoring the program today, another outfit that I've been using for years and years before they became sponsors of the program. Talking about Fast Growing Trees. It's the biggest online nursery in the U.S. It has thousands of different plants, over 2 million happy customers. I am one of them. They got all the plants in trees that your yard needs. They got privacy trees. They got flowering trees. They got fruit trees. They got shrubs. They got little grasses. They got everything you need. Berries. Doesn't matter what you're interested in. Fast Growing Trees has you covered. You will find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Order online, get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever having to leave home, without having to have a bucket of dirt dump in the back of your Subaru, without breaking the trees or shrubs that you get from that big box store. And when you go there, of course, you find that they only have 2 different apple varieties, and both of them are garbage. You're going to grow an apple tree, grow a real apple tree. Like a delicious or something, or some type of generic one.
Have some standards.
Have some standards, people. You could actually get an apple tree, a small dwarf apple tree on Fast Growing Trees that will provide you like 3 different varieties. They graph it on. It's pretty cool. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. They have a 14-point quality checklist and ensures you're getting the very best quality plants possible. You could talk to a plant expert there. They'll tell you, oh, you should grow this. This is what you need for your soil additives here. Or you're in zone 5, so you should try and grow this. You don't need a green thumb. If you want to do your own research, they have a resource center full of tips and advice from plant experts to learn more about your yard's needs. Of course, they have trees you can grow inside. They have plants you can go inside. Fast Growing Trees has the best deals, up to half off, and select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off your first purchase when using the code majority at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code majority at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code majority. Now the perfect time to plant. Use majority to save today. Offers valid for limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. We'll put the links in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, folks, we got new merch. Check out shop.majorityreportradio.com. We got new merch. You demanded it. We provided it. You wanted the Majority Report patch trucker's hat, the patch hat in a different color. Well, now you've got it in light blue, in red, and in black. I'm hearing a lot.
If you want the inscrutable Vergonia shirt.
And the Vergonia shirt, we brought it back, limited edition.
Give yourself a conversation piece.
Yes.
On your chest.
What is that shirt? Well, are you aware of Sam Alito's wife and how she got very mad at seeing a...
Maybe do a laminate note card for people.
Exactly. A pride flag across from her, lakeside house or whatever it was. And she wanted to put up her own flag that said Vergonia. Well, here it is. This is a great way to meet people in a bar.
Yeah. It's definitely one way.
I mean, get it now so you can wear it during Pride Month. And tell us, then send us an email about how you hooked up because of that shirt.
I'd like some reports of how that's received at Pride events.
Huge. You're going to run into people who are just going to be floored.
It'll be like, one in 80
Exactly,
people.
but that person will be literally floored. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Makena Kelly, senior writer at Wired. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. I want to welcome to the program Makena Kelly, senior writer at Wired, focused on the intersection of politics, power, and technology. Makena, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've written a bunch of pieces about Doge over the past, really a couple months, I guess. Mm-hmm. It appears on the surface, well, anyways, Elon Musk had to leave as of May because his role as a special advisor, he did not want to become an actual government employee, and therefore he was sort of statutorily obligated to step back. There's also been this sort of show that there's maybe some separation between him and the administration. He was complaining about the big bill. I'm a little skeptical about that myself. But Doge, I don't think people fully appreciate. Doge is there, and you've written about this. I mean, tell us how they have dug in and where we can see examples of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's all across government, right? Earlier this morning, I was rushing to get up a story because I was able to see documentation that a handful of these early Doge folks, some of the younger kids like Luke Ferreter and Edward Korstein, Big Balls, those folks were just recently.
Sorry, to make you say that.
It's okay. I like to find any excuse to say it at this point. Okay, but they all on May 31st actually just became full-time government employees. They shed their SGE, special government employee title, and now they're here to stay at least through the end of Doge or the end of the Trump administration. And so these major like Doge figures who happen to be these younger engineers are everywhere. I've seen evidence that Luke Ferreter has been everywhere from like the Department of Labor to the General Services Administration, just all across government. And that's just a handful of folks. There's probably dozens and dozens of more Doge people who are at agencies like CFPB, of course, which is constantly being like killed and then revived again. And then, just so many, so many. I think every agency at this point has at least one or two, and that's including small agencies as well, like the United States Institute for Peace, which is not one that kind of crops up right on your big list of government agencies, but they've been targeted. There are people there who plan to stay at least for quite a while, and they're not leaving anytime soon.
Today or yesterday, the administration sent to Congress a formal request for rescission of funds that have not been spent that were earmarked by Congress. And it's basically a list of stuff that Doge wanted to cut that has not been spent. So Congress theoretically could essentially rescind that money that has been appropriated but not yet spent yet. And the idea is Russell Vought is going to keep sending these bills if this first one passes in the House. But Doge, it feels like even those cuts, like the amount of effort and the existence of Doge, it seems to me at this point, clearly cannot be about what they're cutting from government in terms of just like some type of line item. Like, what is their agenda at this point? Have you been able to suss out, like, they've got multiple people in every single agency. Is that just because they're looking to cut 10, 20% or whatever it is from there? Or is there another agenda that you can start to see from your reporting?
Yeah, I mean, the stated goal, of course, is the fraud, waste, and abuse. That's all they've said publicly. But when you look at the decisions that they make and the results of these decisions, I've been talking to federal workers who all of their coworkers were fired, and now they've been rehired as federal contractors. They're not actual employees of the agency anymore, but still brought on in the same capacity. And so I think the one thing that we're seeing very clearly is that these jobs that are being cut are being given to the private sector in contracting groups like Palantir and also just a variety of others. And so it's becoming, I don't know if it's, the stated purpose or the stated goal, but what we're seeing is an increasing privatization of government.
Interesting. And do you have a sense in terms of like the idea that they're sort of absconding with data, or that they're trying to create some type of IT system that is geared towards, I don't know, whether it's maybe, outsourcing or just consolidation or what?
It's a mess. Every agency, these Doge folks come in and they have some plan for making things more efficient, oftentimes doing things that these agencies were already doing with experts in the field and then taking credit for it. But any kind of master plan, I like to not give too much credence to, because just how chaotic all of this has been. And because there's so much regulation when it comes to government contracts, the fact that they have to be incredibly competitive, and then also, you know, just the way that you've had so much leadership who have resisted much of Doge, and it's blocked a lot of what they, you know, the timelines that they've been pursuing for a lot of these things. And so a master database, if we look at like the people who they are looking at as contractors, it is entirely possible that this could happen technically. But whether or not that is the big plan, I think the groups that might have a master plan in all of this are probably the contractors themselves, and trying to leverage all of this chaos to benefit their profit line.
Is there any agency that is sort of overseeing the outsourcing of these contracts? I mean, it sort of feels like the wolf in the hen house has invited other wolves in, and there's not even, that it's sort of the Wild West when it comes to these agencies, it feels like now.
Yeah, I think a big one is the General Services Administration. One of the things that Doge did when it first started, which at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th, I was notified by sources that they were trying to get access to government systems. So right when Trump was inaugurated, right? That effort to get these systems and get in was very, very quick and turned around very quickly. But I don't think that necessarily the way that these systems are working, in the way that this permissions have gone out, it's not like a fully thought out process. And I think like you see now with Russell Vought taking over Doge, he is trying to, what I imagine is that Doge was kind of 1.0 of this administration. And now we're seeing Vought come in with the brains behind it to try and clean up this chaos and mess.
Is there a sense of, like, I mean, in the course of your reporting, do you get a sense of that dynamic because I've seen some people characterize Doge as actually sort of slowing Russell Vaught's role, as it were. Like he was ready to come in there, had Project 2025 going, and sort of got pushed back in line a little bit by Musk. Musk went in there without having done the sort of background planning that Russell Vought had, because Vought knew where all the landmine were in terms of like what the courts were going to stop from the last time he was in the administration. And it doesn't feel like Musk did. Do you have any sense of that tension there, or has it basically been Vought lost a couple of months, but now he's back on track?
Yeah, so I think Vought, he has this giant ideological mission. I don't necessarily think Elon Musk ascribes to that entire ideological mission. But I do think last year, I think it's an interesting dynamic, because last year in the election year, seeing the Heritage Foundation and these big tech billionaires, whether it's David Sachs or a variety of different folks, Peter Thiel, et cetera, these folks who have cozied up to the Trump administration, it's basically a happy coincidence that they were both supporting Trump and wanted kind of similar things to happen, but they aren't approaching things completely identical. And so there have been tension points throughout the entire process.
Let's talk about Palantir and the database that they're supposedly been brought in to, I guess, compile or store, or what are they doing?
Yeah. So the way that this is being approached, I don't think that there's been official discussion about building this kind of like master database on everyone, where I can just like look up Sam Seder and get every piece of information about him ever from every government agency, at least just yet. What we have seen is that these Doge folks at agencies, I think IRS is one of the greatest examples of all of this, where they are bringing Doge folks in to unify data at a specific agency. This was the stated goal from Sam Korkos, who's a Doge person at IRS, and they staged a hackathon with Palantir in April, where they decided to get a bunch of engineers together and create what was essentially called a mega API that would unify all of this data at IRS. And I think what we're going to see, and what is technically possible, would be to do that at every other agency, or every agency that they're interested in doing that with, and then using Palantir Software Foundry, which is a very powerful data analytics tool, to allow those all of those different systems at different agencies to talk to one another. At the beginning of the Trump administration, there was a lot of discussion about centralizing data at the GSA in one place. Centralizing data is incredibly, incredibly hard when it comes to field matching and a variety of different things. And so this kind of more federated system with unified databases at different agencies that then can talk to each other, that would probably be the easiest way to accomplish all of this. And it seems as if it's the direction that they're moving into.
Isn't there some type of statutory protection for at least data that is held with the IRS? And I would imagine, I mean, there's a reason why these agencies do not share data, and it's not because it's more efficient or they can't do it. It seems to me that it's been like a protection of privacy for Americans. I mean, I think, there would be some level of efficiency, I would imagine, in some ways. There'd be a lot more efficiency if a lot of these programs were universal in many respects, and then you wouldn't need such granular data on each person. But aren't there statutory protections there? I mean, is anybody sort of saying, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? Or is someone bringing lawsuits? Or what's the status of that?
Sure. Yeah, there's been plenty of lawsuits. I think one of the main laws that is being discussed when it comes to all of this alleged, data compiling is the Privacy Act, a very clear law that says, that data cannot be mixed or shared without special circumstances and discussions. I think in a lot of the agencies where we're seeing Palantir being discussed on being used, there are pre-existing contracts there. So IRS had a pre-existing contract with Palantir from a couple of years ago that they used for their fraud investigations. And I think what seems to be happening is that it's easier for them to expand those contracts where they're already at, to grow their size and influence in these places. So IRS is definitely one. I'm imagining places like the Department of Energy and places like that already use Palantir software. And then there's also things that are called, this is getting really weedsy, but something called interagency agreements, where there are these pre-existing agreements between agencies like the IRS and the SSA to share data under certain circumstances. And so I think that right now it makes a lot of sense with the agencies that they targeted and the pre-existing, agreements that were there, that they've launched that effort first in these places where it's most easiest and to establish a type of footing.
So if there's already a pre-existing agreement, expansion of that agreement is much easier than starting to draft the whole thing and get all this theoretically the stakeholders in on having to deal with it. So, but what would be the purpose? I mean, I can come up with some ideas, but I have a feeling that my ideas about what the purpose of this is probably not the same as like Palantir's.
Mm-hmm. I think the purpose is slowly evolving throughout this administration. I immediately, when I started hearing things about folks looking into Palantir and Foundry software, I immediately started thinking like, okay, so what are the Trump administration's priorities right now? What is it that would be a Doge win? Because Doge, that's a quote that has been said to me so many times, that Doge is looking for a win and they're trying to find ways to secure that win. And so looking at immigration and a story that I reported a couple months ago about how the system was being used to track and survey migrants, I think they're trying to do smaller test cases first and maybe slowly become a broader network of different systems that talk to one another. And so I don't even know if they have a bigger plan, right? In this case, it's really, I think right now it's trying to combine data sets from specific agencies to solve specific problems, right, that the Trump administration has identified, and then work from there.
Have you seen any indication that they're using this stuff. I mean, we're in the midst of ICE ramping up these raids on different across the country. We know that Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller have said, we want to up this number from whatever 650 immigrants detained daily to 3,000. Have you seen any indication? I mean, I would imagine it's difficult from, this is all like sort of like ants on an elephant on some level, but any indication that or pattern in where ICE enforcement is happening, that it is a function of maybe sort of like agencies communicating with each other in a, I guess, for lack of a better word, more efficient way?
Yeah, I think one of the, it's hard to prove for certain because I don't have access to these systems, but I was told by multiple sources that IRIS data was used in this USCIS system, which of course is one of the databases that houses a lot of data on immigrants going through the formal immigration process. IRS has some of the most updated information on someone's official place of residence because you have to change that and submit a form every single time you get a new job. And so I can definitely see how those two sets of data, right, would be extremely beneficial to the Trump administration if you're cross-referencing immigrants and then trying to find their most recent residential address. That's a very easy way to target those folks. I think one instance that I have, it's been suggested that it's been used, Antonio Gracias, who is a close friend of Elon Musk. He is kind of the appointee of the Social Security Administration. And I think he was getting interviewed for the All In podcast, which is that like Silicon Valley billionaire, David Sachs, all those guys on there. He was being interviewed by those folks. And he said that at SSA, he was able to try and identify people who voted illegally. I had multiple sources at DHS and at agencies across that said that there were folks in Doge who were trying to find voter records in Pennsylvania and Florida. Now, I don't know for sure, right? This is kind of circumstantial hearing these multiple things. But there is definitely a lot of things that they're looking at, a lot of wins that they're trying to get. And they're looking for data basically everywhere. One thing that I haven't heard, and I've been surprised that I haven't heard, is commercially available data sets. We're not seeing those that you can just like buy on basically everyone in the country, if not the world, right? And that's one thing that I haven't seen yet, but definitely one thing that I'm keeping a very, very close eye on.
And what do you mean by that? Like that they would start to buy these commercial data sets and use them to cross-reference information they have to build out a bigger sort of like field of what they know on people, or would the sales go the other way?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, data brokers sell all kinds of data. This was a big discussion with TikTok, right? When it was, why ban TikTok? In the US, if China can just like buy US citizen data very easily on the market. And so, yeah, I mean, it would be making these very detailed portraits of everyone by combining all of this data. But of course, I want to stress that like, this is not something that we've seen is actively being pursued, but something that is technically possible, right, with the technology that they are using.
Is there anything else before we go that you have on your list of things to be looking out for, like that may end up being red flags or stuff that you suspect may be going in certain directions?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was listening to the show before I joined, and I think one thing that you pointed out that we are going to start feeling the effects of all of this soon is 100% true. At the beginning of this administration and Doge, right, federal workers were the first to be affected by losing their jobs. Now we're seeing immigrants being targeted more and more. But we're also, in Social Security, the Social Security Administration has seen a bunch of glitches and problems with their systems and making it nearly impossible for long periods of time for people to access their benefits online. And so I think that pool of people that this affects is going to continue to grow. One thing, when the CDC was completely gutted, they got rid of the entire team that has to do with cruise ships and making sure that they dispose of their trash and waste properly. Now, without that group, we could basically just have this summer, all these people going on vacations on cruise ships that might just be like total, ships filled with garbage and trash. Just crazy stuff that can happen as a result of these cuts. And so I'm looking for more of those things, right? The effects of all of this.
Makena Kelly, we will link to your most recent piece in Wired, and to all your pieces there. People can catch up with what Doge has been doing and will in the future. It won't be particularly pretty, and like you say, I think we're gonna start to feel the effects of this. Sometimes we may not even know it's from that, but we're going to start to see it. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Roberto Camacho. He's a journalist from San Diego who, in writing for Bolt, is reporting on the group that has been essentially organizing to protect undocumented people from ICE out there. You'll recall over the past couple of days, we've seen some protests in San Diego as ICE comes in and tries to roll up people there. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Joining us now, Roberto Camacho, journalist from San Diego, California, reporting on criminal justice reform, immigration, Chicano and Latino issues as well. Writing in Bolt. Roberto, welcome to the program.
Hello, Sam. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on today.
I want to play a little footage of what we've seen just over, I guess it was over the weekend in San Diego. This is ICE agents, and I don't know if they're all from ICE. They're federal officers. They seem to be recruited from all sorts of different branches of our government, having to deploy flashbangs on community members protecting their neighbors. Pop this up. And I mean, we could see like they seem dressed and geared up in such a way that they anticipated they were gonna get this pushback. Why do you think that is?
Well, Sam, I think that when it comes down to a lot of this is for shock and awe. It's meant to instill fear into the community, and it is meant to overwhelm the community. It's meant to send a message, and it's also in a certain way, I think, for the federal government to make propaganda so they can facilitate this photo ops, video, and whatnot.
Tell me about Union del Barrio, and just give us a sense of the history of this organization and what they've been doing.
Absolutely, Sam. So Union del Barrio is a pro Chicano Latino advocacy group. It was founded in 1982 in the aftermath of the Chicano civil rights movement. And for the past 40 years, they've advocated for Chicano rights, Latino rights, the rights of prisoners, incarcerated youth. And also for the past 30 some years, they've also done these community patrols in some form of fashion, whether that's cop watching, informing the community about the presence of Border Patrol, and over the past 20 years, obviously ICE. And that has only ramped up since its creation in 2003.
What is the? I mean, walk us through like what their operation is in terms of what they do in that respect. Outside of the advocacy and whatnot, but like the actual sort of template that they're following. Excuse me.
Yeah, so the community patrols are all volunteer community patrols that are switched off in various communities across the county. Various communities fall into different jurisdictions. There are some places like the city of San Diego itself is patrolled by the San Diego PD, but then there are other parts of the county such as East County, like El Cajon. If you go up to North County, Escondido, parts of those are unincorporated, which are patrolled by the San Diego Sheriff. And the San Diego Sheriff is vowed to cooperate with ICE and the federal government. And these are also communities that are outside, I think, what people would traditionally think of as like immigrant communities, but nonetheless also have very large working class immigrant communities in them. And the goal of these patrols is to go into the communities, look for undercover or ICE vehicles. Normally there's very telltale signs. They normally have blacked out tinted windows. They're normally some kind of a U.S. made car, a Dodge, a Ford, Chevy, Durango, SUVs. And there's always somebody in the vehicle too. There's normally, sometimes there'll be like a bars, like a cage. These are telltale signs that the patrols look for. And when they have positively identified that ICE is in the community, they will radio out, they will blast across social media, and they will also, in bullhorns, they will announce in the community that there is ICE in the neighborhood.
So if I understand, and you write about this in the piece too, San Diego has, within the confines of the city limits, the San Diego PD is the primary police force, and they don't have a relationship. They specifically are inhibited from coordinating with ICE. So ICE goes to where the sheriffs are responsible, because the sheriff has basically said, I don't care what the city council says, I'm going to cooperate with ICE.
Correct. And also, I do want to reiterate that even though this county board of supervisors, they did vote that they would not be using any kind of county resources to aid or cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, but that hasn't stopped them though from also doing raids in the city of San Diego itself. It's just that there is a little bit of confusion across the county because the county board of supervisors will say one thing, the San Diego sheriff will say another, and the San Diego sheriff is the one who operates all of the jails within the county. And that's where that conflict has come from.
And so getting back to the actual sort of like citizen patrols to warn community members of the presence of ICE. How do they'll go on social media and whatnot? What are the rules of engagement, for lack of a better term, that they have, and how do they protect themselves? Like, for the sake of people out there who may want to engage in this in some way, or just happen to be, walking around and seeing a white van with like that white stuff they put over the glass or whatever. Walk us through what the sort of the line is and what you can do and cannot do when you engage with these people.
Yeah, so these are purely observational patrols. Union does not physically interfere or block federal immigration officials. What they will do, however, is they will go up and they will ask them, are you ICE? Are you Department of Homeland Security? They will record, they record them. They have dash cams, they have cell phones too when they go out and do this. A lot of times, and also these patrols are done early in the morning when ICE and immigration is trying to do these raids and catch people early when they're either going to work or when they're asleep, stuff like that. A lot of times, ICE, they'll leave when confronted before like a raid has happened because their cover's blown. And a lot of this comes to the element of surprise, catching people off guard. And if the whole community is blaring across bullhorns that ICE is in the community, a lot of times they will leave on their own accord. Not all the time, but oftentimes that happens to be the case. But Union, this is purely just observational. They don't interfere or block federal immigration officers in any way. It's akin to what we call cop watching also.
But you can, just to be clear, right? Like I walk up and we've seen video of like guys walking up to a van and going, "Hey guys, smile. Are you ICE?" And then they, drive off. They're like, but I could sit there and you're allowed to record. And I'm also allowed to go like, "Hey, ICE is here." Right. As long as I'm not obstructing them in any way. I am well within my rights to, it's always good to record this just in case. Yes. But I can sit here and yell, "ICE is here, everybody. The ICE, ICE truck is here." And announce it, because they don't have the ability to go into somebody's house unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. They'll sometimes just have an empty warrant or one where, but it has to be signed by a judge. And so they need these people to be out, like either walking to their car or going to work or getting to work. That's the sort of thing that trips them up. They don't have the time or the inclination to go to a judge and get a warrant, because that's what you do for real criminals, as opposed to like, we're just trying to round up people.
That's correct. And the thing is that ICE and the federal government very much preys on the ignorance of the public, not knowing their rights and how to interact with law enforcement. And I do want to drive the point home that the community patrols are only one of several initiatives that Union del Barrio does. They also do community education, know your rights programs. They facilitate cards, literature in both English and Spanish. They hold these events sometimes in public, sometimes in people's homes, because like we were talking about, sometimes this information is facilitated over social media. But not everyone who's not an English speaker or, is a working class person is on social media like that. So they very much make a point to meet the community where they're at and to inform the community to make sure that the neighborhood knows their rights, knows what they aren't and are not required to do by ICE, to know that, hey, you need to produce a warrant in order to come into my home. And that's really the big battle, is to make sure that the community knows their rights when they're dealing with ICE and other federal immigration agents.
And people, when ICE starts asking them questions, the thing to ask them is, am I being detained? And if the answer is no, then the thing for you to do is walk away. And if the answer is yes, then the thing for you to do is to say, I exercise my right to stay silent and I want to talk to a lawyer. Don't tell them anything about anything. Don't answer them. You can't being friendly with them is not going to help you. Let's put it that way.
No, they're not your friends. They are not there to be nice to you. They don't even have to tell you the truth. They can lie to you. That's legal for them to do.
They can't misidentify themselves, right? They can just say, they're police, even when they're not necessarily police in the way that we think of police, right?
Yes.
What else should folks know? I mean, if they want to maybe they live in an area where there has been a lot of ICE activity, and they want to start to like maybe model these type of things after the Union de Barrio, or just want to get more information from your reporting. What can people do if that's their interest?
Yeah, so Union de Barrio they're not just in San Diego, they're also in other cities, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, Irvine. For other places outside of California, I think that people should look to their local advocacy groups, particularly around like Latino advocacy or immigrant rights. I know that depending on where you're at, there might be a little bit far and fewer in between than like out here on the West Coast and the Southwest. But I think that this program, it follows a model which honestly, even Union de Barrio has said themselves, they modeled this after the cop watching programs that the Black Panthers did. Like this isn't like something new or like some kind of like revolutionary program. It's something that, people have been doing to protect themselves from law enforcement in this country for the past 50, 60 some odd years. It's just a matter of it's organizing. It's not that we don't have the power or the know-how. It's just the organizing right now. And I think that we have a template. We have a template going back decades, from various organizations, whether it's Union or whether it's the Panthers. And I think that people who want to get involved in their community should look to these models as inspiration. Maybe not the 100% emulate, because I understand that every community is different. There's its various nuances and unique challenges. But I think that these overall templates provide a pretty good roadmap for how people can adapt this to protect their communities and meet the needs of their communities, wherever they might be.
And I would imagine too, like if you're involved in going up to ICE that is like sort of on a stakeout in a neighborhood and they leave, that's costing them half a day. And that's just a half a day where they're not going to be able to, round people up and try and pursue their quota. They're not going to arrest the mom, or they're not going to arrest the dad, or they're not going to arrest the kid. There is like, a finite period of time that they're going to be able to get away with this. It seems to me, maybe 4 years, maybe it's 2 years, maybe less. But if you can delay them a half a day, you've delayed them a half a day.
If I could editorialize just a little bit, anecdotally, I do think that this particular instance in San Diego was notable. And I think it's caught the attention, not just here locally, but nationwide. But I think as the community response to the neighborhood driving ICE out is very, it's very striking, because the neighborhood that this happened in, South Park, it is not a neighborhood in San Diego that we could normally consider a working class or like a heavily a high immigrant population. It's a very upper class, what we would call gentrified neighborhood. But I think that the response that we are seeing is showing that public opinion of ICE is starting to shift. And it's not just shifting amongst Latinos or other communities of color, or even just in the organizer community. There's an overall shift in just the average layperson. And I think that this response here in San Diego is a potential sign that this is happening, not just here locally, but across the country as well.
That's great. Roberto Camacho, we will link to your piece in Bolt's magazine. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, folks. Going to wrap things up for the free half of the show. Someone on the IM, who was it? It was Brooklyn Sue. pointed me to stopice.net. Stopice.net. You can sign up. You can send reports. You know, some of these are, you know, just possible sightings, but worth getting on there, checking it out. Particularly if you live in an area where there's been some ICE activity.
I just want to play this real quick. This is Minneapolis yesterday, where the similar sort of dynamic happened, where the community really turned out raining to support folks, and here they are shouting at ICE.
That's fantastic. And that's in Minneapolis. People are very polite there.
The Minnesota nice.
Right? Isn't that Minnesota nice? And they're sitting there swearing at these people?
Yep. And Omar Fateh, who's running for mayor, turned up on the scene. A person who didn't is Jacob Fry, who was trying to deal with all this through press releases. So
I'm sure he was very busy.
Different types of leadership. I guess we need all types.
I want to start seeing this type of stuff happening in Worcester and around in Massachusetts. I don't know how many T-shirts we have to give out.
I mean, that's Vergonia. Here's just earlier. This is from at TAYLR, who's on the scene there posting folks showing up to this restaurant. I mean, just imagine these guys showing up like dressed like they're about to invade the West Bank.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like, what is like the mentality? Dude, get a job and go work, provide security for the local Walmart or something.
Right.
You really want to dress up. But this is just pathetic.
Call of Duty taco stand. It says make tacos, not walls on the awning. And it's raining hard too.
I mean, can you imagine just the mentality of these ICE people who come home and they take their holster off and put their gun down and they put their, M16 aside and just be like, rolled up a guy who was the sous chef. This guy was the one who was, responsible for putting the salsas out, and I had to take him out today.
Yeah, exactly. We did reconnaissance around the back where they take the garbage out.
I guess we won't have to worry about that guy putting stuff into the dumpster again.
Big tough John Waynes.
Looks like there's going to be a couple less rhododendrons planted now that I've rolled up some of these guys working on this landscaping crew. One less 2x4 that's going to get nailed.
There's another video where people were putting trash cans in front of the vehicles trying to stop them, and one of the guys said, that's your city, and the person said, yeah, get the fuck out of it.
God, it's so gross. And yeah, just scroll down to see this other picture, like this guy. Like,
sheriff here.
Like, why are they, honestly, wearing masks?
These are the type of guys that live.
I understand, how much these people were chastising protesters of a genocide for wearing masks. Because those protesters had no guns, no state authority, no protection of the law. Their jobs can be taken away by very, very powerful people. Their diplomas can be taken away. They can be kept from graduating. Meanwhile, these sheriffs or whatever,
however they're deputized.
And, in the best case scenario, these guys are like, I have to do this. It's my job. I want to just I'm embarrassed by it. And so I am wearing this mask. Write an op-ed, an anonymous op-ed. How about that too?
Learn to code.
All right. We're going to take a break. If you want to support this program, City Lifestyle, regarding the Minneapolis raids, it was due to serve warrants on the taco shops. The Bloomington location didn't get the militarized police. My question is why HSI is involved and why they came in military gear to serve a warrant on the shop.
I think Roberto had it right that this is a shock and awe. They are just running. It's like we're Baghdad.
Yeah. And it also makes these guys feel bigger about themselves, too.
Yeah. Load
look
up.
How cool I look in this. Look how cool I look.
Got this vest. So in case they throw avocado at me.
Your support makes this show possible. You can become a member, join themajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, free commercials, you get the fun half, too. You can IM us on the fun half. Get the free half commercial free. Not Your State Rep says, do not learn to code. I'm unemployed with 7 years experience in software. The market is garbage. It's been full 5 months now. Oy.
Yeah, it's being sarcastic.
Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Get 10% off. Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, Courtney Rollins and Alex Jordan of Quincy Institute's Always at War show, which is new on YouTube, came to talk about that. And we talked about Zoran's grocery bill, which public groceries endeavor, which draws an interesting critique from defenders of capitalism, which is actually the margins in groceries are only 3%. So it's not like they're being really... the profiteers are really sucking a lot out, and actually that's the point, because they're only 3% and they don't cover a majority of people, and there's massive problems. So capitalists can't actually provide groceries to people, and Zoran has an idea of how to do that. So it's
groceries.
Good to try. It's an old-fashioned word. We touched on an old-fashioned word last night, and also Alex Jones caping for Palantir. Check that out, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Oh, we got that clip. We'll play that. Emma's chin pimple says, have you seen the reels on social media where it's revealed that the uniforms and official patches that ICE personal wear can be easily purchased on Amazon? The reels show clips of these taco Gestapo chubs wearing identical gear to what's available to civilians online.
There's been somebody charged, woman arrested after impersonating an ICE agent. Like, this is already happening.
Eric in Poland, Sam, you're so right about ICE agents and even local law enforcement fantasizing and cosplaying as military special forces. 30 years ago, the average cop had just a bulletproof vest and a sidearm. Now they all have full battle rattle armor, helmets, M4 with CCO sidearm, but of course no taser because using non-lethal force is woke.
Not, being in constant fear for your life that you're about to take someone else's is woke.
Okay, headed to Fun Half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now, but I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.